p.m. This is the special legislative. This is the special legislative meeting calling to order. Members of the council, you have before you an agenda. Are any amendments required to this agenda? Hearing no need for amendments, are there any Yes, sir.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, on a matter that I read earlier today, regarding a number of county bills that are coming up in a special session on the 31st of May, regarding the repealing certain aspects of the police accountability bill that's coming before the county council. And I was wondering if that's something we wanted to talk about under new business, either in the special legislative or in the work session, to determine whether or not is this something that we would want to provide comment on to the county council.
Okay, are you prepared to take action? Because if not, then we should discuss it under the work session, and we can of course schedule a special legislative if we're going to take a position on it sometime between now and the weekend, obviously, since the action by the county is next week.
Well, my thought, Mr. Mayor, was doing something along the lines of essentially getting what we needed done here, and then we get down to new business, go into recess for the legislative session, go to the work session, talk about it there, and if we feel we need to, we can come back into either way. We can come back into the special legislative, and if we need to, if we want to take an action, then we could, or we could just adjourn the special legislative.
Okay, that sounds fine. I'm happy to do that. So we will recess and go to the work session as soon as we're done with the legislative action item. So thank you for that heads up. And please remind me, should I get to the end of action item 1 and have lost my bearings there. So, but no changes needed to the agenda. We'll just you'll just make a motion, perhaps after legislative action item, to go into recess, and we can take it from there.
Okay.
Any other changes to the agenda or conflicts of interest? Are there any conflicts of interest for any agenda items?
I have none.
Hearing none, may I please have the motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Foe. Is there any discussion of the agenda? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Is Councilmember Smith in attendance? Don't see him in attendance. Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq.
Aye.
Is Councilmember Mejia in attendance? Don't see Councilmember Mejia. Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. Brings us next on the agenda, public comments. Are there any public comments this evening? Hearing none, we'll move on to the single legislative action item, adoption of ordinance 2022-OR-03 regarding the fiscal year 2023 operating and CIP budget and tax rates. May I please have a motion to adopt ordinance 2022-OR-03?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like the motion to adopt ordinance OR 2022-OR-03 concerning the fiscal year 2023 budget and tax rates.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Mayers. Would you like to discuss the budget, Councilmember Lingua?
I think we've discussed this budget at length over the past several months, starting back in December. And I believe we've come to a point with the help of staff, with a considerable amount of help from staff, to get to a point where we're able to pass and follow not only a balanced budget, but a budget that meets several of the values that we have in our vision and commitment statement. And even with certain unexpected surprises towards the end in terms of about our grants. I think these are lessons we take away from that for the next time, that we are able to move forward with this budget and be able to accomplish all that we set out to in the coming fiscal year. Again, my hat's off to staff and all the members who have participated, including the folks from the community who came out to provide comment on this budget. It's been a pleasure working with everybody on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager, would it be possible for you to have staff discuss the changes that have occurred since the initial draft budget, so that we can be sure that that we all understand the changes that have been implemented since the introduction?
Yes, sir. Deputy Director Jones, can you walk the council and the public through the changes that were made as a result of the work session last week?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Listician. So as John has mentioned, there have been a number of changes that we made to the ordinance, and they are listed here, starting with page 1, which is the FY 2023 fund designation page. For this grant revenues column, the original amount there was $425,000, and that has been changed to an amount of $525,000. So we have $100,000 difference there. The next in the fund designation page is the state bond bills. Originally, we had an anticipated amount of $840,000. And we had to reduce that because we weren't receiving state bond bills in that amount of $250,000. The next is CIP fund expenditures. The amount of $6,592,656 is actually going up to $60,012. Also on the fund designation page, we have a total fund balance amount, which was originally $1,052,686, and that has been reduced to $502,765, a difference of $549,921. On the fourth page of the ordinance, which is the CIP fiscal year 2023 revenue page, we have state highway Maryland highway funds. The original amount that we had there was $225,000. We got an updated number of $227,408. So that difference was $2,408. Additionally, grant revenues. We had initially we had an amount of $575,000, and we corrected that to $525,000, which is consistent with what we had on page 1. Additionally, we had CIP revenue of the state Maryland bond bills of $840,000, and again we changed that to $250,000 to reflect the correct amount once we figured out we weren't going to be receiving those funds. And the total CIP fund balance, which was $10,129,558, that was changed to $9,507,237. On page 5 of the ordinance, which is the CIP expenditures, we had an original amount for the Adam and Emily Plummer Park of $265,656. And that has been increased by $100,000 due to additional grant revenue to a total of $365,656. For the municipal center renovations, we had an original amount of $715,000, and that has been increased by $120,603 to $835,616. The next project that we made a revision to was the DPW building renovations, a total of $130,000, and then that was reduced to $122,500. Additionally, we had the building demolition and parking lot development. A total of $365,000 had been increased by $80,000 to $445,000. And we had pedestrian walkway and Queensbury Road security, which is an additional project that we added $85,000. Originally, we didn't have anything there. And the last is the vehicle upgrades and replacements in public works. We had $659,000 originally, and we reduced that to $534,000. Yeah, and that totals all of the changes that we made to the ordinance.
If I could add just one thing, Mr. Mayor, and Mr. Jones, correct me if I'm wrong, the first part on page 1, that's all within the CIP budget, correct?
Yes.
So there are no changes to the operating budget. In terms of the ordinance, in the budget book, we did move $4,000 from a special project fund in the Office of Administrative Services to the Mayor and Council's budget, also a special project fund, and that's for pollinator-related programming.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. So just to be clear, the the ordinance that appears starting on the next page of this part of the packet has been amended to reflect all of these changes that are on this page.
Mr. Jones? Mr. Jones?
I'm sorry.
The document that is at the end of the packet, except for the very last page, Ordinance 2022-OR-03, has been adjusted to reflect all these changes. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Thank you. And Councilmember Lingua and Councilmember Mayers, first maker and the seconder, just to be clear, the motion that you made was to adopt the ordinance as presented in this packet, and that is effectively a wholesale replacement of the ordinance that was initially introduced with the new text. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. If you'd like me to amend the motion to say as amended, I would be happy to do so.
I think that it's fine as is. I just wanted to have it reflected in the minutes that was the intent of the motion.
Yes, I
Councilmember
was
Mayers.
cognizant of those facts.
Thank you. Councilmember Mayers, that was your intent also? You're still muted, Councilmember Mayers. Councilmember Mayers. Please, thank you. It was your intent and understanding that this was as amended correctly?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Okay. Are there additional council comments on this ordinance? Are there any public comments on this ordinance? Hearing none, I will go to a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith is still not in attendance. Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Siddiq,
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia is also absent. Councilmember Mayers,
Aye.
and I abstain. The motion passes 401 with the number of votes needed to meet the requirements of the charter. Thank you all very much. Councilmember Lingua, you are going to make a motion to go into recess at this time. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. I'd like to make a motion to go into recess.
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Foe to go into recess. Is there any discussion of this motion? Are there any public comments? I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith is absent. Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Siddiq,
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia is absent. Councilmember Mayers,
Aye.
and I abstain. The motion passes 401. We are in recess. During the recess, for the intent discussed by Councilmember Lingua, we'll move into the work session. I will call that meeting to order at this time. Are there any, this is an informal meeting. We don't need to have the votes or any changes to the agenda needed. Are there any conflicts of interest that any council members have for items on the agenda?
I have none.
Okay, very good. Then let's go ahead and move into the presentation with Delegate Alonzo T. Washington. Delegate Washington, we would love to hear everything exciting that happened during the legislative session that can fit into a sort of 15 or 20-minute window.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and council members. Great to see everyone. It was a great legislative session this year that we had record funding, and obviously we took care of our district as much as we possibly could. It was an exciting session just because we were able to find, we had a surplus, which is unheard of. I've never seen a surplus in the state's budget since I've been here. When I first started, I think our budget was at about just tipping over 40 billion, I think. And now we're about 50 something billion dollars in tax tax revenue from the state. And so we have a very large budget this time around. And that's due to a lot of the federal government work, a lot of federal government dollars that were coming in and things of that nature that caused us to be able to have more income into the coffers of the state. As many of you know, just for the record, my name is Delegate Alonzo Washington. I represent District 22, Hyattsville, the great town of Riverdale Park, and so many other places that I'm not going to name all of them because I'm going to get in trouble. But I serve at the pleasure of the Speaker as the Vice Chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, which oversees taxes, gaming, election law, and my favorite subcommittee, which is education. And obviously, because I'm the chair of that subcommittee, I'm really in favor of that committee, and plus it means so much to so many of our students here in Prince George's County, and I'll talk about that a little later. Sam, let's go to the next slide. So what we've been able to do with the money is we'll be able to spend it on things that matter to Marylanders, right? And so since we had over a $6 billion surplus, we were able to fully fund healthcare needs for the entire state. We'll be able to expand healthcare and mental health services for our families here in Maryland. I'll talk a little bit later about K-12 education, but obviously we are still making sure that we take care of our HBCUs that have been underfunded for decades in this state. And then the other piece on here, we have about $5 billion that we allocated for multiple of our projects, statewide projects of transit, including the Purple Line, and things of that nature. Not the maglev train, that is not included in the state budget at all. I can promise you that we're making sure we stay away from that. At least for me, we're staying away from that as much as we possibly can. And just a bit on that, because we were able to convince the city of Baltimore that it wasn't a good idea for them either to build a maglev train. So we're really excited that we're able to hopefully defeat this thing. Now, if we get a Democratic governor, I know we're nonpartisan here, but if we get a Democratic governor in office, we will defeat this thing, I promise you. And the last piece, we allocated about $1 billion to fighting climate change and protecting our Chesapeake Bay and environmental justice programs. And some of what we hear in Riverdale Park and downstream in Edmiston, a lot is about stormwater management and flooding in our communities. And so we did allocate some funding on those things as well. Next slide, Sam. So the next piece on here is I want to just talk a little bit about just how we invested in Prince George's County. Again, with a $6 billion surplus, we really invest in Prince George's County. We were able to direct at least $663 million for our local municipalities through our highway user revenues to help build sidewalks, street lighting improvement, any important infrastructure improvements. I know since when I first got here, about 8 years ago, we started defunding highway user revenues. And now we're at a point where we actually can start increasing funding to the highway user revenues that impact you as a municipality. Some of the things I'm really excited about are the FBI relocation. I mean, that's big because that's in our district, with Greenbelt being one of the locations that are still being considered. And now that we have a new president, that's been re-upped and actually opened up again. So we have the possibility of having the FBI relocate back here to Prince George's County. You know, Prince George's County has been hard hit by COVID, but also we've had the highest health disparities in the state. If you take a look at our numbers, you'll see it. We allocated about $67 million to help just this year to help build a new cancer center at the Capital Region Medical Center in Largo. Not in our district, but important to our residents, right? A lot of our folks, a lot of our residents here suffer from cancer. And a lot of people, just like one of our delegates, suffered from cancer recently and recovered from it. We need to make sure we have high quality, world-class treatment here in Prince George's County. And so we allocated this money just this year. I know we're centering a lot of our focus in the state around the center of the county, which is pivotal because we want to build that downtown feel of Prince George's County. Here and Largo is one of the locations. We were able to secure over $400 million to revitalize the metros, the Blue Line Metro Station, Blue Line Metro line in Prince George's County. So that includes 4 metro stops of investments. Like this type of investment has never happened in the state's history for Prince George's County. None of this money, let me just say this, none of this money is going towards keeping the Washington football team here at all, period. And I'm not saying that because I'm not a fan of theirs and they keep losing every year. I'm just saying that because it's a fact. We're just not doing it. Sorry, Sam. Sam is my lifesaver. He's a big what is it? Commanders fan. Next slide, Sam. And so one of the big things that I think that will benefit the town of Riverdale Park, and I'm gonna try to move faster because I have a few more slides left and I want to open up for questions, but this National Capital Strategic Economic Development Program that I created maybe 2 years ago, where it started out with 0 funding, then the next year started off with about $1 million, and the next year was $7 million. We're able to get it up to $12 million this year for inside the Beltway communities like Riverdale Park to be able to actually apply for this funding and use this funding to help build new development projects within your town and within your city. One of the projects that actually were awarded some of the grants was down in the Beacon Heights area, down 410, where that park and planning property was. And that's going to be a new mixed use affordable housing project that's going to be there right at the center, right on the Purple Line stop. So this money really does work and it does invest in our communities. And so we need to make sure we continue to invest inside the Beltway communities because we have not done that enough lately. For local bond initiatives, I know the town knows this very well, but we were able to make sure that we have adequate funding for these projects that were submitted to the state, to us as delegates. And so we were able to secure over $6 million I think last year we got over a little bit over 6 million. That was because we allocated too much money to one project that was not ready to go just yet in Hyattsville. But this year we were able to get a lot of good projects done. And so I just wanted to just highlight this because this is like all over the gambit from Hyattsville to obviously Riverdale Park to Edmonston's University Park to Greenbelt. You know, we were able to take care of our at least all of our 7 municipalities were able to take care of here in local bond initiative. Something that whenever one of our municipalities submits something, we always have to like downgrade and say, we can't give you 775,000, we can give you 50,000. This year, fully funding everybody was my goal. Make sure we fully fund every project. Next slide, Sam. This is a big one that I wanted to just let everyone know. This is a historic tax relief package that we passed in the House of Delegates. Again, I'm the vice chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, which oversees taxes and tax policy. And so I was able to actually influence how much money we're able to allocate in tax relief for families here in Maryland. Just going to, there's several on here, one of which was the gas tax suspension for 30 days. Obviously not enough time to provide relief, but it did save Marylanders about $93 to $96 million in that 1 month to be able to use for whatever their needs are because of what's happening in Ukraine. But the other piece I wanted to add here was that we are going to be providing in perpetuity $1,000 tax deduction for our seniors. If you're over the age of 65 and you make, or you're retired over the age of 65 and you make under $100,000, you'll get $1,000 tax relief in addition to any other tax deduction or tax credits you are eligible for. We know that our seniors are at a point where, you know, their income is at a stalemate, and so they can't afford to continue to, you know, as our tax assessments of our houses go up, so do our taxes. And so we got to make sure we take care of our seniors some way, somehow. This was one of them. Next year, my goal is to make sure that I'm focused on affordable housing for our seniors and affordable housing for families and mixed income housing for families here in Prince George's County. The big piece that we had here, which I was waiting for to tell you, but I'm pretty sure you already heard this, but we were able to fully fund the new Blueprint for Maryland's Future, which is our take on public education reform from K-12. And so it was we were worried about how we're going to pay for this $5 billion project at year 10. We were able to allocate $800 million of those funding to fully fund and phase in all the great programs we have under that, which includes expanding pre-K and early childhood education, making sure we're paying our teachers at $60,000 a year once they come out of college, so increasing the salaries of our teachers, but make sure our students are college and career ready. Those are the big ticket things that we want to pay for and invest in our students and invest in our care. And this is making sure that we have community schools throughout our county. We have over 100 qualified community schools in Prince George's County. So that's any school that's above 60% farms school will qualify for increased funding to their school to provide services directly to that school. Last piece is that we're building 6 new schools. I know you already know that we're building William Wirt Middle School. We're rebuilding Hyattsville Middle School. We're building another school in the Beacon Heights area, to middle school in the Beacon Heights area as well. There's a $3 to $5 billion backlog of building schools here in Prince George's County. We're just trying to make sure we move the needle as fast as possible to make sure our students are in high quality schools because they deserve it. Next slide, Sam. This piece we talked about, you guys know that we did the paid family leave and medical leave here in the state. Finally did something great for our families and for people who are just having kids, so they can have extended family leave for the state. And we did provide up to 12 weeks for that. And we also provide some levels of dental coverage for families too. This is a big issue that's happening with Supreme Court this year. While the Supreme Court was Supreme Court will eventually probably overturn Roe v. Wade, In a state, we are reinforcing this by providing access to care, access to protections, increasing insurance protections for women. And in the House of Delegates, we actually moved a bill to codify abortion rights for women in the state's constitution. Unfortunately, the Senate of Maryland did not pass that piece of that constitutional amendment, but we believe that it's really important that we make sure that women have access to any care that they believe, that any care that's necessary for them. Next slide, Sam. On this last month, I think this is my last slide, guys, so I apologize. I'm going on for a while now. We are going on the ballot this year. You'll see a measure on the ballot for legalizing marijuana. We have not created any policies about what that will look like here in the state if it becomes legal. That'll be next year when we talk about the tax policy around it, what the structure of it will look like. And then also, where is that money going to be allocated towards? Obviously, you know me, that money is going to go towards education and recidivism, honestly, here in the state. And we also passed a piece of legislation, if this does pass, to expunge the records of thousands of Marylanders who were arrested for related to marijuana possession. And so if this passes, then this automatic expungement happens 6 months after the bill becomes law. Next slide. All right, last thing, I think. So we have new primary dates. I'm on the ballot this year, like many people here in Maryland. You'll see us on the ballot. The dates got pushed back from June to July 19th because of the congressional maps that were drawn and challenged. The courts had to push the date back, and so many things have changed, including our legislative maps. And I think all of you already know this, but we have a congressional seat up for grabs this time, where Anthony Brown has decided to move to another position, and therefore we are in Congressional District 4, where we are no longer represented by Steny Hoyer. Here, most of our district will be now covered by Congressional District 4. So we have a few people running. I'm not going to mention any names, but there are great people running, and I hope everybody gets out to vote on the primary date, which is July 19th. And with that, I just want to thank you all for having me again this year to be able to bring some good thoughts about how the General Assembly went this year. Be happy to have any discussions or talk about or answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Delegate. It was quite a busy session. There were just always emails popping in my box about this piece of legislation is being heard here and this is going on, and it was hard to stay on top of, I'll be honest. So I appreciate all the hard work that you and your staff have put into doing so. Do any members of the council have questions for Delegate Washington about anything that happened during the legislative session? Councilmember Foe.
Delegate Washington, thank you for being here this evening. We really appreciate your time. You answered a majority of my questions. My questions were concerning accessible abortion access for women across the state of Maryland, and also the expungement of records. So for marijuana arrests. I don't know if you know this or not, but Len Bias died in Riverdale Park. So I honestly believe this is the beginning of the war on drugs in the United States of America. So to see some restorative justice return towards nonviolent drug offenders is something that I'm very keen on, and I'm really excited to see what we do moving forward in that. But with that being said, I just wanted to say thank you. You have done an excellent job representing us, and I look forward to voting for you again. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Foe. Any other questions from council? Not seeing any microphones go gray, so I'm going to ask if there are any questions from members of the public.
I just want to thank any and all of the Commanders fans for not coming after me during this call.
Thank you so much. Ms. Katz, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, I just have a question. Delegate Washington, thank you so much for the presentation. And yeah, the whole Commanders thing, we don't have a football team anymore as far as I'm concerned. I'm from the 70s, so it's been painful. But I did have a question about, on one of your slides, I saw $850,000 for Riverdale Park Trolley Trail. And that was a large sum of money, and I guess I'm just not understanding. I knew that we had lit the trolley trail, but I'm curious what that funding achieved or what that was about, because I didn't understand what that was.
I'm Delegate Washington, you're muted.
Yes, so sorry about that. Yeah, so this was a reauthorization from something that we did last year. I believe we allocated about $1 million last year. We reauthorized it this year but I know there was some actually conversations afterwards between the Councilmember Glaros and the town council on what next we can use that money for, if not for lighting the trail any further. I know that the city of College Park was also part of this discussion as well in the General Assembly, saying as though one of their delegates is represented on the Appropriations Committee. They were very interested in this project too.
So the project, Ms. Katz, is to rearrange the streets and the trolley trail and the sidewalks to make it work better for everyone. Because right now the people traveling through on the trolley trail sort of have to dodge around the cars, and the pedestrians have to dodge around the cars and the bikes. And so it's a big project. We're going to basically be replumbing all of the transportation through town center.
Fantastic. Okay, that's a large sum of money, and definitely appreciative of that project. Thank you.
Of course. So Delegate Washington, I just wanted to express my personal appreciation for a few of the items that you highlighted. The family medical leave, I think, is so important, it'll be so important for so many of our residents and for so many people all across the state. I'm really pleased to see that. And of course, as I think you and I know secondhand from my father how important education was for getting him and his family out of poverty. And I know that that's true. And so funding education at the highest levels we can to provide that pathway is so important. So thank you so much for those two items and for letting us know about them.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it.
Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, then let's thank Delegate Washington again. Appreciate you coming very much. And we will move on the agenda in our session.
Thank you, Delegate Washington. And Sam.
Appreciate it. Go Commanders.
It's the Steelers right here, buddy. Come on.
Oh man, killing me.
Go Ravens.
Okay, next item on the agenda is my report. It's going to be pretty short. I'll leave most of it for 2 weeks from now. One item, we will have a brief ceremony at the Veterans Monument on Memorial Day to lay a wreath at 11 a.m. I may say just a few words, but probably no more than 50 or 100 words. So it should be a very quick, we'll be laying the wreath. As Delegate Washington said in his presentation, there is a primary election coming up, and I hope that people are looking at that election and paying attention and learning about the candidates, because there sure are a lot of them, especially for governor. And so please pay attention and be ready to vote. I believe early voting starts maybe July 6th. I don't remember the exact date, but around that time. And the election day itself is July 19th. And last but not least is touching in on everyone's least favorite topic, which is the current state of the COVID pandemic. I know that a lot of people are feeling comfortable or feeling safer. I will mention that I've seen some people estimate that the number of infections with COVID right now is the highest that we've had during the entire pandemic, as of a few days ago, not in Maryland, but in the country. And in Maryland, it's pretty bad. And the last numbers came out on Saturday, last new numbers came out on Saturday, are heading up in the county. And so please be safe. Please wear your masks if you have not gotten vaccinated. This current round of the virus, they say it's mild, but it's not that much milder. And if you are unvaccinated, it's really not much milder at all. So please get vaccinated as quickly as you can. Please wear your masks. Please stay safe. Please please wear a mask at any time if you're with people or inside of a public space at all. So that concludes my report for this evening. And let's move on to the town manager's report. Mr. Town Manager.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few items. One is a reminder, Town Hall and Department of Public Works Operations will be closed on Monday, May 30th, in observance of Memorial Day, and there will be no trash collection. The trolley trail lighting project, we're regrouping and going to advertise another invitation to bid. Unlike recent invitation to bids where we're receiving multiple bids, in this case, we received one that someone just kind of tossed a number at. And it's about four times higher than our engineer anticipated the bid would be. So we're putting that back out to bid. Community Forklift has removed all salvageable materials from 5,000 and 5,000 to Queensbury in preparation for any demolition. They'll be back immediately prior to demolition for doors and windows. The next community TRP walk and talk is scheduled for June 11th at 9:30. The last one was a great success, and we look forward to our next walk and talk. Director Barnes will be publishing the route and the topics along the route here in the next week or so. Also save the date for the Riverdale Park Sustainability Committee's Tree Summit, September 10th. But we'll all get busy with the summer, and when we come back, we'll have a tree summit on September 10th. And the last thing I have is the staff have been working on different ideas for a large project that's now budgeted in fiscal 23, where the mayor and council have $2.1 million, and staff have been exploring possibilities as it relates to Wi-Fi and connectivity in public places as one potential project for the council. And so we've received a proposal from one of our engineers to conduct a study for Wi-Fi in our public places. So we're reviewing that currently. And that's all I have this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Are there any questions for the Town Manager before we move on?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, please.
Mr. Listician, regarding the efforts you're putting towards looking at Wi-Fi in public areas, what is the, I was wondering if you could touch a little bit more on the scope and the objective you hope to meet with this project.
And it's just getting background information right now for the council, for you all to consider as one potential option. But in reviewing both eligibility requirements and needs, it would be to both, for example, in the town center and other park areas, to have connectivity and have Wi-Fi. So this would simply be looking at the feasibility of doing that. Director Shelton, is there anything that you would add to that at this time?
No, I think at this time that describes it perfectly. Thank you.
Does
Thank
that
you.
answer? Okay.
Okay, any additional questions for the town manager? Okay, let's move on to council committee and ward reports. Councilmember Smith still doesn't seem to be here. Councilmember Foe.
Just glomming off your presentation, Mr. Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, apply for your mail-in ballot. It's the opinion of myself that this is the absolute best way to vote. And the story that I will tell time and time again is my first election that I voted in as an 18-year-old in Western Pennsylvania. I was a supporter of a half-penny sales tax increase to fund a Major League Baseball stadium, what I think is absolutely horrible politics at this point in my life. But I remember so proudly going in the ballot box and then and being confused because I knew so little about the actual rest of the ballot. You know what I mean? You get in there and things jump up on you. And ever since I've been able to mail in my ballot, it has offered me legitimate time to focus on judges, on ballot initiative issues. It has allowed me to explore candidates. And even at this level now where I am an elected official, I reach out to other office holders or people seeking office to try and get to know them. It is a better, more informed way to vote. And I would encourage you all to take advantage of that. I was just looking up for a date that this ends, but it appears to run almost up into the election where you can request ballots either online or mailed to your home. It's really a remarkable system, and I think we should take advantage of it. One last thing, and I'll probably talk about this a little bit more. I had an email from a constituent today, and all the doom and gloom of government. Look to small elected office. Look to local municipalities for inspiration in what government can do. We have a resident in Ward 2, Mr. Mayor, Jillian Molina, who had just horrific flooding in her backyard. It's one of those cases where you arrive to their home and you have no idea what you're going to see, but you immediately are pierced with empathy because they bought their home. They saw their future here. And if you saw the flooding that was occurring in their backyard, you would be shocked. And I went to town staff, and town staff acted incredibly fast, and we had engineers on site, and they built a curb. And she excitedly emailed me today saying that, they don't know that everything's in the clear, but we've had some hard rains here the last couple of days. And the flooding in their backyard is dramatically improved. And we're talking about planting native trees in grant money available through the Chesapeake Bay Watershed Program. I think you can get up to $150 for a tree or multiple trees. I'm not certain. You'd have to check that out, or I will check that out. It's just, it's one of those victories that we in local municipalities are able to get. And I want to thank town staff for being so responsive to my constituent. And I just wanted to relay that information that we have a resident with a smile on her face with plans for her backyard because of the action that you took on her behalf. So thank you. And with that, I yield my time.
Thank you, Councilmember Foe. I remember Ms. Molina's issue and the discussions with town staff and the work. So it's, I agree. It's good to get that feedback from the residents saying that they're very pleased with how things turned out. Thank you for sharing that with us. Councilmember Lingua, Ward 3.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'll try and keep this brief. Last Saturday was the was the Spring Health Fair for that CCAR CDC sponsored. Over 20 organizations came out with healthcare programs for the community and offering free services during the event. It was a well-attended event, in spite of the fact that it was rather warm out there. Number of organizations were there, and they were offering, to touch on the theme, vaccinations for COVID. And it was all running very efficiently, as well as other services for checking blood pressure and cholesterol levels. It was along with other ways that folks could go in and check up on things related to eye care, and a myriad of other screenings. I wanted to thank the CCAR CDC for helping to put this together. And I hope that in the future, they hold more events similar to this for the community. June 4th, the board will be meeting for essentially an information and training session as the CDC evolves. It's going to be from 9:30 to 12:30 on June 4th. The next CDC meeting will be on June 7th. I believe starting at 6:30, running to 8:30. That'll be online. You can find out more at ccarcdc.org. One other note, CCAR related note is that some are saying, the secret is out. The Hyattsville Wire is featuring an article on it came out this morning. It's featuring an article on the Sarvis Cafe. If you haven't read it yet, you can go to hyattsvillewire.com /2022 /05/23 /Sarvis-Cafe, and read the article. The CDC is hoping to get the cafe up and operational in the coming months. They had some issues getting some permits or some final inspections and some permits awarded to them regarding some issues related to their electrical system, which kind of came at a peculiarly late in this whole process, but with some help both from the town and from Sam Parker, they were able to get these things taken care of and are moving forward. As more information becomes available as to when a soft opening will be and when it will be fully up and operational, I'll be happy to share that with the council. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I will conclude the report.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. Councilmember Siddiq, do you have a report?
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Councilmember Mejia is still not here. Is that correct? Yes. Councilmember Mayers, do you have a report?
Yes, good evening, Mayor. On Jefferson Street, I've noticed that there is a lump of grit that's, I don't know if it belongs to Riverdale or one of the private residents, but it's blocking the gutter from the water running. So the last rain and now this rain, we have a puddle of water that's just sitting there, and that's going to breed mosquitoes because it can't run down the gutter to get to the sewer. because the grit is blocking it. And I don't know who dumped it there.
We can have the Department of Public Works check on that, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Foe, you have a question?
No, I just, if you wouldn't mind, I have an additional comment that I would like to make. Councilmember Thomas Sadiq graduated, when was it? Saturday? With Friday with 2 additional degrees, running his total up to far more than I ever have. And I just, I want to say congratulations. And he's inspiring me to go back to school and encouraging me to do that. And I want to say congratulations. You're setting a good example and you're pushing education forward. And I just wanted to say, we're happy for you. So congrats.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Councilmember. Agreed. Okay, that concludes the council committee and ward reports. Are there any public comments this evening? Ms. Katz.
Thank you. Yes. I have a laundry list, but I'm not going to go down the whole list. I think some of the items on my list, I should use the website tool about reporting things. Is that correct, town manager? Little branches hanging here, trash cans needing to be emptied there. But I would, a couple of things I did want to touch on. 3 things. The first is, now that I'm riding my bike to work on River Tech Court, I'm wondering, can we use the street sweeper to sweep the shoulders or bike lane, specifically bike lane areas? It seems to collect a lot of rocky debris and car, I want to say car parts, but little things that are much more impactful to someone on a bike than they are to someone in a car. So I was just wondering if that's something that we could add to our laundry list of things to do in town when it comes to using that street sweeper.
Director Lewis, if you could add that concern to our regular sweepings.
Absolutely. And I know they make a pass or 2 a week. It's just a matter of maintaining that weekly schedule or increasing it as we have staff support to do so.
Do they do River Tech Court? Is that?
They should be doing River Tech Court. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. That stuff accumulates quickly. I don't know. It must be the amount.
Some of the construction might be contributing to that.
Sure.
But
that
yeah,
would make sense.
so we'll try to make a couple of more passes in a week.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Also, another one, the trolley trail, okay, north of Queensbury. And then when you go on the trolley trail north of Queensbury, there's really only one side, the west side of the trolley trail that has the rain gardens on it and various trees planted. I've noticed that in that section, the majority of the trees do not have mulch around them. And I think that is very impactful as we approach summer, especially I've seen a lot of instances when mulch is not applied around trees. They really have a lot against them in surviving, especially when they're on the young side like we have with these newer trees. So to keep the water in those trees, and water is really what they need in their initial growing years. So there's just no mulch at all around just about all the trees that are planted in that section on the North Trolley Trail, west side, up to that, I'm not going to explain it very well, before you get to Riverdale Park Station.
Okay.
And then I got 2 more quick things. One is a question. Does the town own a water buffalo? And when I say a water buffalo, I mean probably something that's on a trailer and is a big container that can hold water.
We routinely water trees. We water other plantings, flowers, and that, yes.
So we have that piece of equipment, a water buffalo, to do that with?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. That's good to know. I didn't know that. And then lastly, I just wanted to make a comment on the town staff, the proposal here for the council to consider about public Wi-Fi. Thank you. I think that's a great idea. That would be really awesome. And that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Katz. Appreciate your comments.
Appreciate the
Councilmember Lingle, you had your hand up. Did you wish to respond to one of her comments?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I did. Regarding the point she brought up about street sweeping. And as we have, as a body, we have passed an initiative, the walk bike drive initiative. I think one of the considerations for that is going to be making sure that bikeways are clean, and where bikeways are along the side of the road is where a lot of debris will be pushed off to from general traffic. And I know it's going to be a challenge for staff to meet. And if it is something that staff needs to come back to council about in terms of how they're going to need to meet those challenges and how there might be augmentations to the budget that might be needed. I hope we're, I would say, consider ourselves forewarned now that that might happen, because for this policy to be effective, it's going to take that consideration. If we're going to really stand behind this, it may require some additional outlays to do so.
Thank you, Councilmember. Are there any additional public comments before we move on to the work session discussion? Hearing none, seeing no microphones turning on, let's move on to work session discussion. Item number 1, fence permit request, 6-foot fence at 6411 49th Avenue. Is there a staff presentation?
Yes, I'm sorry. My apologies. I'm trying to get all my screens moving around at the same time here. Recently, we received a fence permit request for 6411 49th Avenue, and staff are seeking direction from the mayor and council regarding that fence permit request. The project includes the installation of a 6-foot wood fence along one side of the property. Currently, what exists along that side of the property is a chain link fence, and a small portion that is a shorter wooden fence. So this is an overall improvement of the fence that currently exists. It would be a project that would be eligible for our accessory structure grant program. It's consistent with our desire to remove more chain link fences and put up a newer fence. I'm not certain that the resident is present tonight, but I would like to ask if they are present, if they'd like to share any more information about their project with the mayor and council. This would be a great time to do so. Again, this is 6411 49th Avenue in Ward 2.
My name is Rick Heilman, and yes, I am here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything you'd like to add? Did I miss anything when explaining your project?
No, nothing at all. We're just trying to make it a little bit better.
Certainly.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Foe?
Yes, it's a pleasure to hear from you, Mr. Howman. I tried to call today, but I actually called the contractor that's building the fence because that was the number that was listed, and I have a tendency to make mistakes like that. I didn't see any problems with this at all. What we do ask in this is that you talk to your neighbors to make sure that they are okay with it. But concerning council, the removal of chain link fence and the addition of a wood fence is something that we're always pushing forward to. I don't know if you heard Mr. Barnes recommend the use of our accessory dwelling structure grant. Is that accessory structure grant? But yeah, you can receive some funds to have that chain link fence removed. And that's about it. I think that this could be put on the consent agenda moving forward at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember. And thank you to the applicant for attending. This will go on the consent agenda, and unless something comes out from one of your neighbors, then I think it will be passed through at our meeting 2 weeks. So let's move on to discussion item number 2, which is another 6-foot fence. And this one is at 4701 Oliver Street, which is in Ward 1. And unfortunately, the Ward 1 representative isn't here, but can staff please guide us through this particular request?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. So good evening again, Mayor and Council and members of the public. This applicant is pursuing a town building permit for the installation of a 6-foot wooden fence at 4701 Oliver Street. This applicant has already obtained a Prince George's County permit for the project, and I believe the applicant is here tonight to answer questions and to explain their project in a little bit more detail. Is that right?
Yes, this is Twee.
Good evening. Thank you for coming this evening. Can you tell us about the project?
We're just updating the house that hasn't been taken care of for quite a while, and just trying to make the community look better and the house better.
Okay, I think there's so many fence permits, I'm getting them confused. Okay, yours is very clear. I was initially concerned because there are some county regulations for houses that are on corners, but at least as far as I can tell, you met all of them very well. I appreciate you adhering to their requirements. Thank you. And I will try to speak to your council member this week to find out whether this should go on the consent agenda. Is the fence that's in the pictures, has this fence already been constructed, or is that an older fence that you're replacing?
So we were replacing the older fence, and we were asked to remove a section in near the front of the house where it was there already. But in compliance, we went ahead and took like 4 or 5 panels out as part of the update.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I presume that this will end up on the consent agenda, but I will ask your council member to reach out or reach out myself if there's any issue that comes up. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
And let's go on to fence permit request number 3, this one at 4600 East West Highway.
Good evening again, Mayor Thompson and members of the council. We recently received a fence permit request for 4600 East West Highway for a 6-foot fence in the backyard. The applicant is present tonight to answer any questions or provide any additional detail regarding this project. Mr. Frago?
Yes. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, thank you for joining us.
No problem.
So this was the map that confused me. If we could hop forward, I think it's to page 5 of the packet materials. So the fence is the black part marked in back with the X's. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. 6 foot. Yeah. Well, almost all the other maps, they had the new fence in red, and I was like, "What? He's putting a fence around the entire property?" But that was my reading. I just wanted to verify that that was the case. And as with the previous applicant, I want to thank you for adhering to the county's requirements on corner properties to basically put the fence behind the front face of the house that goes onto each street. And so you met that very carefully and very well, and I appreciate that.
No problem. Absolutely.
And,
I did have a question about something though.
Yes.
This is kind of the initial start of what I wanted to do. I've already applied for that particular grant that you guys mentioned earlier. So I'm kind of looking forward to see if they approve that so I can continue doing, a little bit more home improvement as far as making things look better. But I was curious if I need any type of permits or anything to put in a 4-foot fence, like a smaller fence just to separate, my neighbor's house and my neighbor's property line from myself.
You can put in a 4-foot fence. There is a restriction against chain link fences, so it can't be a chain link fence, but any 4-foot fence constructed of other materials is acceptable.
Okay, perfect. I don't want to do chain link, obviously. I want to do another little section of 4-foot fence where it's up here on above lot 20 that goes kind of down towards the sidewalk, just to separate the neighbor's lot from myself. So that way I can plant some lavender or some roses or something on my side of the property.
Understood. And I appreciate your statement that you wouldn't put a chain link fence there. It's good to hear that. I appreciate that.
No problem.
So as with the previous applicant, your council member is not here this evening, and I will be in touch with him this week. And unless there are some issues with one of your neighbors or so on, then this will be on the consent agenda, and we'll let you know if it's not going to be on the consent agenda next week.
Okay, so this is something that,
excuse me, 2 weeks from now.
2 weeks, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. That's just kind of the time frame, and that's what I wanted to know.
Okay, thank you very much for coming and for investing in the community this way.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, let's, unless there are additional council questions or comments on this item, are there any? Okay, let's move on to item 4, fiscal year 2022 revenue update.
Deputy Director Jones.
Thank you, John. Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. Tonight's revenue comparison is in the same format that we've been doing in the previous revenue comparisons. We have 3, the current fiscal year, and then the 3 fiscal years that preceded. And then we cover 5 major revenue categories. The first major category is local taxes. In the current fiscal year, local taxes totaled $6,221,859. This consists of the real estate taxes of $4,899,000, personal property tax $584,000. Local income taxes, $508,000, and operating taxes of $229,000. So currently at this point, the town revenue is down a bit from the previous fiscal year. Much of that coming from the personal property tax, which is 4,008. One thing to note, however, is that we are actually at over 150% of what was projected. Again, that line item, we had projected less due to the purple line, which we expect to have in the next fiscal year. If you look at fiscal year 2020, we're more in line with where we were there. Total 2020 fiscal year local taxes totaled $6,146,000. So all in all, at this point, local taxes continue to be fairly strong given everything that is going on economically. But again, we continue to monitor the local tax revenue. One other point that I would like to make is regarding the 4001 real estate taxes. As we approach the end of the year, we do expect to flow back roughly $281,000 back from the MuniCap TIF revenues. And we just need to get confirmation from MuniCap, and then we can go ahead and then move that amount there. So we do expect that number to increase within the next month or so. The next major category is licenses and permits. For the current fiscal year, we have a total of 199,957. That figure is down a little bit from the previous fiscal year, but up from the year that preceded last year, which was 193,873. Last year being 223,796, and fiscal year 2019 exceeded all three with a total of $263,062. Building permits were a bit higher that year. That explains the difference there. The next major category that we have is the administrative fees. So we have had a number of municipal infractions that have incurred the current fiscal year. The total for this year is 8,100. The previous year was just 1,400. The year before that was 3,600. I'm sorry, 3,400. So yeah, it looks like for the current fiscal year, there have been municipal infractions, and we've done a great job with our neighborhood services department, making sure that everything is up to code. The next category is fines and forfeitures, which includes police reports, vehicle impounds, and parking citations. Currently, the total is 32,585. Year before that was 41,762, and the year before that, at this current date, the total was 58,174. So currently, we do see that the police reports and vehicle impounds and parking citations are a bit lower than in the previous year, and it seems to be a trend, as that number was even higher in fiscal year 2020. The last major category is the community safety programs, which includes the Safe Speed for Students, which is our speed camera revenue. Currently, town revenue for this particular category is $1,309,730. This figure is up considerably in comparison to the previous year and the years that preceded as well. Last year, $908,960 was the total. The year before that, $517,800, and then the year before that was $536,000. So 2019 and 2020 were fairly consistent, both at around a little over 500,000. But in the previous year, with the lockdown, we saw a large increase in speed camera revenue, and in the current fiscal year, we've seen even more of an increase. So that's something that we continue to monitor, and we will do so throughout the rest of this fiscal year and moving forward in the next. So net operating income for all the categories that we have here for the current fiscal year is $7,772,230. Overall, we have exceeded the budget amount. We are at 106%, and we still expect to receive additional revenue for the rest of the fiscal year. Last year, the total was $7,747,000 at this time. The year before that, $6,920,000, and the year before that, $6,260,000. So if we look at these figures, the town revenue has exceeded any of the previous fiscal years, and we look to be in good standings, given everything that we know that's going on globally and here domestically. So this concludes the revenue comparison, and if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you, Deputy Director Jones. Are there questions for Deputy Director from Council?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Councilmember Lingua, please go ahead.
Thank you. Deputy Director Jones, the numbers that you presented us this evening, are these within your, well, I was wondering, to what extent are these numbers within your projected estimates when you were putting together the budget?
Um,
Are these falling in within like a 5% range? I mean,
Um,
save for like the safe speeds for students, which is
Mhm.
has just gone beyond what was expected.
right.
But I mean, in terms of where these numbers are falling at this point, is this about what you were expecting when the budget was being put together last year?
Yes. Overall, where we stand today, given that we do have a fairly large chunk of revenue we do expect to receive at the end of this month and in the next month as well. It does look like we will hit our projected revenue numbers that we presented in the budget earlier.
Does that answer your question, Councilmember Lingua?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. If we could scroll back up to the top, I have just one clarifying comment for the line 4001 real estate taxes. You said that there was an additional $250,000 expected to come in from this is from the TIF. Is that correct? So
Correct.
that's excessive revenues from Riverdale Park Station properties that are under the TIF. That's to pay for the bridge over the payments that went to the bridge. And you're expecting to, and so the 4001 should increase to something like 5.1, 5.2, somewhere in that range million after that happens.
Mhm.
Okay.
And we also we expect to receive additional revenue at the end of this month and the end of June as well. So we do expect to have a fairly large amount of revenue coming in for real estate taxes at the end of this month as well as next.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are no additional council comments, I'll move to public questions and comments. Are there any public comments? Doesn't look like it. So thank you very much, Deputy Director Jones. Appreciate the report and the insights as always.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is Ordinance 2022-OR-04 regarding the Town of Riverdale Park Property Maintenance Code. Can staff give us a brief overview of this item?
Absolutely. Good evening again, Mayor and Council and members of the public. Last month, we discussed the Riverdale Park Property Maintenance Code, which will replace Chapter 67 and 68 of the existing town code. As a reminder, the Riverdale Park Property Maintenance Code is based on the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code and includes a few minor amendments as directed by the council. The greatest difference between the town's current method of adopting the International Property Maintenance Code, which is what the county is currently using as well by reference, and adopting our own Riverdale Park Property Maintenance Code will be the applicability to commercial properties in town. The Office of Administrative Services will work with Neighborhood Services to notify our commercial properties of this change. And if there are any questions about the Riverdale Park Property Maintenance Code, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you, Director Chelton. Are there any council questions on this agenda item?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chelton, I know in this code, there's a section dealing with roofs and drainage, and it discusses extensively how water coming off roofs down through gutters and downspouts is to drain onto the property. And I was trying to look in here and trying to find where there was an application for anyone who is dealing with French drains, or how folks are draining out portions of their property that have basements that are underground and are essentially pumping water out of a sump pump. if it is not already going into a water line.
Yes, I'd have to take another look at the proposed code, make sure I understand precisely where it references that. But I do know that everything that we have repealed from 67 and 68 has been included in the proposed Riverdale Park Property Maintenance Code. So I'm happy to look into that and send you the information on exactly where to find that in the new proposed code.
Yeah, well, I've gone through and you know, I found the part on the roof drainage, but I didn't really find anything dealing with, the part, it doesn't seem, there's not a listing. I did I set up so I could do a word check. I wasn't really finding anything. Maybe I was putting in the wrong word. I don't know. It might be, I don't know if it's essentially under, I even checked on what was it? Section 302.2, talking about that. I believe that was on as is listed here. It's on page 28 of this document. And I'm just trying to pull this up now. Hold on a second. Almost there. 426. A bulky system here. Slower. Here we go. As I look on that page, it just essentially talks about premises shall be graded and maintained to prevent the erosion of soil and to prevent the accumulation of stagnant water thereon within any structure located thereon. That's really about it. There's nothing about, issues about in terms of directing how to direct runoff or any other matter in terms of dealing with setup of French drains on properties and how they're supposed to be properly set up and or maintained. Because as it is, we have a number of properties that are dealing with drains coming out from their house, pumping out water from some pumps in basements that are, some properties are set up with proper French drains and others are set up so where the water is coming out and discharging out onto the street. And come wintertime, we have the issue of essentially this water freezing over and causing large ice sheets in some locations. As well, we also have properties where there are drains set up that aren't even draining out to the street. They're draining off of back properties, which are tangential to other residents' properties.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please.
And Director Shelton and Director Barnes, if I have this incorrect, please correct me, but I believe the county has regulations as it relates to sump pumps draining to the street. And they have a program that stipulates the guidelines for that. And that would continue to be applicable in the town of Riverdale Park. It's not through their property maintenance code. The property maintenance code generally is not to be instructive on how to correct a problem, but rather to set broad guidelines for minimum standards. as there may be a variety of ways that someone would be able to gain compliance, some less expensive than others. So as a general statement, the property maintenance code is not going to be prescriptive, but I believe that if someone is putting in a French drain, that may, depending on the amount of area being disturbed, that may trigger the necessity for a county grading permit, which then would be prescriptive on how things are to be done. I hope that's not muddying the waters, if you will.
Well, yeah, I would consider French drains as, a function of, essentially, being set up in order to help maintain a property. I'm just kind of curious as to why it wouldn't be included here. I mean, we're seeing a number of other things that are, or at least general provision about how, a drain, is to be set up and or maintained in terms of how it's supposed to function properly and how to maintain that proper function. I don't know if this falls more on similar lines with lot coverage and those standards set by the county.
That's certainly something that we can look into, council member, and report back to you. It's been my experience that the property maintenance code is throughout jurisdictions, and including here in the proposed ordinance, are not prescriptive on how to accomplish the broad goal. For example, I think you quoted 302.3, which just is a general statement that premises shall be graded and maintained to prevent erosion of soil.
3022, but anyway.
Yes, I'm sorry, I misspoke, sir. And then the same in roofs and drainage in 3047. I think it was 3047.
Yeah.
Councilmember, can I draw your attention to section 507.1 storm drainage, which says, and I don't believe it covers the situation, but I think a very minor amendment could possibly do that. It says drainage of roofs and paved areas, yards and courts and other open areas on the premises shall not be discharged in a manner that creates a public nuisance. And so if we extended that to include, or altered that to include basements, then I think that that might address your concern.
I think that would help. Yeah, I think that would. I think also, I mean, I think also even the language, could be expanding on it in terms of creating a public nuisance. That's somewhat broad. Yet I think it's a matter of like what one could consider a nuisance. What one may see as a nuisance, another may not. I think probably something with a slight bit more of clarification. I can't think of language right off the top of my head.
If it pleases, I'm sorry, sir.
So, but I mean, no, that's about as far as I can go. But it just seems public nuisance just isn't, to me, isn't coming across as clear enough.
if it pleases the council, staff can take a deeper dive on these particular related issues and work with Mr. Sussman
Okay.
to gain clarity on not just the what is meant by a public nuisance, but also as it relates to basements. And then we can come back at the legislative session with that language, and we can send it out in advance to the council for any amendments.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's just essentially someone could ask, you know, how's water draining off my property a public nuisance? And I think that's where the explanation needs to start being more filled out ahead of time, if that makes sense.
Yes, and one example, sir, may be folks that are discharging water that's freezing then at the curb line.
Okay.
And it's causing a traffic or pedestrian hazard.
Okay.
But I think we would need to work with Mr. Sussman on that. Director Chelton, do you have any other thoughts on how we can gain clarity for the council?
No, but I'd be happy to work with Mr. Sussman to make sure that the wording is as accurate and we are able to include that in the town code.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional council comments or questions on this proposed ordinance? Are there public comments? So I will just comment on an item that's in the introduction written by Director Chelton, where it states at the end of the second paragraph in the background section, the county continues to amend the 2018 IPMC as it did with the previously adopted version to only apply to residential structures. And we are not doing that. And I think that that's one of the biggest deals with this legislation. One of the biggest changes is that we will be able to apply this to commercial structures and have some town input into ensuring that those structures are properly maintained. So I want to thank staff. This has been a very long process, and it's exciting to be close to passing this into being an official ordinance. So thank you. Any additional comments from council or the public? Okay, let's move on to discussion item 6, residential permit parking program. And
I'll be beginning this discussion. The memo for the packet this evening has some familiar information that was in for the last regular work session in April. As discussed at that time, we're going to need to keep this conversation going because it's quite in depth, frankly, and there's a lot to it. So we wanted to come back at each work session. Tonight, just sharing two thoughts. One's in the memo, and the other is something that staff came up with in the last few days. And so the one is grouping our outreach. So we have, I believe it's 11 current parking areas, and then once we accept the infrastructure in Riverdale Park Station, we know from outreach and comments made here that the HOA board has expressed interest in having permit parking on the residential streets there. And so staff were reviewing the areas and thinking that we could group the vast majority of our permit parking areas into group one and have a discussion with residents in those areas because the characteristics are probably fairly similar. And then have a separate discussion reference Madison Hill, and then third have a separate discussion reference Riverdale Park. So wanted to first float that concept past the mayor and council, see if there was any initial reaction or objection to that.
The third part was referencing Riverdale Park as a whole or Riverdale Park Station?
Riverdale Park Station Townhome neighborhood.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional council comment on that? Thoughts about the three groups? Councilmember Siddiq, please speak.
Yeah, I think breaking up into the appropriate groups sounds like a great idea, and soliciting inputs for residents should help move this along. Thank you.
The plans and the grouping look good to me. I'll just say that I agree that the group 2 and group 3 have unique circumstances that may not apply to the rest of them. I'm looking at all the blocks in group 1 and sort of imagining each of those, and there may be some special circumstances for a few of those, but I think it'll work. I think it'll be okay.
And then the second thing, and as staff are working on this, and this is more of a lofty goal, but I thought I'd just toss this out here for you all to consider in the weeks and months ahead. We've been, the council has been acting to create a variety of opportunities for residents to become involved through different committees and that. And as staff are further discussing parking and traffic concerns, the concept of perhaps a board of traffic and parking to be an advisory body to both staff and the council is something that we could look into in the months ahead. There's a variety of local jurisdictions that have such advisory boards. And so I just wanted to, without any formal presentation, just mention it here this evening, that it's something that perhaps the council consider in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. There used to be the Traffic Study Committee, and I believe I have the combined records of the Traffic Study Committee in my possession, and if so, I will try to dig them up this long weekend and gingerly hand them off to Director Barnes to file, because when the Traffic Study Committee dissolved itself, which I believe was approximately 10 years ago, then the chair just showed up at my house and handed the material off to me, because I had been the liaison for many years at that point. And so, but I should get that into the hands of town staff. Any additional discussion of the topics under this item? Any public comments?
So I was just going to say, so the staff team will work on our outreach activities, and we'll follow along with these groupings and report back to the council.
That sounds good. So the idea is that we would have dedicated public hearings before a work session for at least for each of these sections or each of these groups individually. Is that correct?
Yes, and as part of our outreach prior to a public meeting, we'd likely do some sort of surveys and that, so we can compile some data. We would also have the engineers. We've already had engineers look at Madison Hill and Riverdale Park Station, but we'll have the engineers look at these other areas as well. So we can put together a substantive packet on all the areas for the mayor and council's consideration.
That's great. This is a good way to divide a big problem into smaller big problems. So that's always good. Okay, if there's no more discussion, we have one more item under our work session discussion items, which are minutes. There's a variety of minutes. As always, please review and make sure that what you think you said and how you voted is recorded in those minutes, because once adopted, then that's what history will show. So please look carefully at them. So let's move on now. Are there any items still under the work session of new business?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Councilmember Lingua, please speak.
This is what I brought up earlier about the meeting that the county council is setting up. It's where they will be sitting as a committee of the whole on Tuesday, May 31st at 11 a.m. And this is it's their third and it's also their final review of proposed legislation, which is to address police accountability. And there are several measures which are proposed and submitted by the county executive, also Brooks, to the county council, which was required by state law passed in 2021, and it needs to be implemented by July 1st of this year. The meeting is a hybrid meeting in the sense that it will be held both virtually and in person. And they're stressing the importance of public comment, either through the council's e-comment portal or to register to speak and or to submit a comment or written testimony. And they're looking at three measures: County Bill 021-2022, and it's an act concerning law enforcement accountability. County Bill -022-2022, which is an act that would be repealing the Citizens Complaint Oversight Panel, which is part of the new Prince George's County laws being enacted in accordance with the State of Maryland Police Accountability Act of 2021. County Bill 023-2022, which is an act repealing the Prince George's County Police Department use of force statutory provision as part of the new county laws being enacted in accordance with the State of Maryland Police Accountability Act of 2021. And the fourth measure bill listed here, CB-024-2022, which is an act concerning participation by public safety employees in certain matters and use of county resources by police officers during participation in those matters. I received this just today. It was sent out at 1:15. I saw this about an hour and a half later. I know I've not had really a chance to go through these and read through them all. Yet I wanted to be able to bring this to the attention of the council to get some thoughts on, do we want to provide a comment on this? And if we do want to provide comment on this, what would that be? Now, we do have a bit of a timeline here, being that comments need to be I was looking again for when they need to be submitted by. There's nothing you're saying when written testimony needs to be submitted by. They are saying registration to speak should be completed by 3 p.m. on the day before the meeting. Well, the day before the meeting is Memorial Day. And it's not sure how that, is going to work over a holiday. So I'm not sure exactly what the timelines are for providing comment on this.
So
Now-
I can say that I've registered for testimony previously online, and the system seemed to be working over the weekend. So that is a possibility.
Okay, I'm not as familiar with that, so I wasn't sure. So if you've been able to do that and it's been successful, then great. So then we know we just need to be registered by 3 p.m. on Memorial Day if that's how we want to. If we want to do public comment in person, or virtually.
So, Councilmember, do you have a proposal with how we might move forward on this issue?
Other than the fact that just like, going through these each at a time, which may take a while, because these are, from what I have seen, they are fairly substantive. And I don't know if we'd be able to get through them through this one work session. So
I think it would be
that's
challenging.
where I'm stuck, and this is why I wanted to bring this up to council to see how they wanted to proceed.
Sure, I've been been skimming them since I received them from you not very long ago, and they are substantive. There's no question of that. And trying to work our way through, I think, would be a multi-hour process.
Right.
Something that that the council could consider when we end our recess and revert back to the special legislative is to authorize a subcommittee to review and provide commentary on behalf of the council, on behalf of the town. And thus that would let a subset of the council do that work over the next several days and provide commentary before our council can again meet. And I think that that would be reasonable. We could also charge the town manager to generate commentary or to review. I mean, the subcommittee could include council and staff. There's lots of options here on a way to deal with this as a council, while still having that subcommittee carry forward the full weight of the council to the town council.
Yeah, either way, it's going to be a heavy lift all around for the amount of time that we, that's made available to us to afford comment.
There are all sorts of problems just with the state law, and that a lot of authority has been by statute given to the county without much consideration to the municipalities. It was something that we had been hoping to have addressed during this last session of the legislature, but it didn't happen. From my reading of the latest drafts of these this legislation, then in fact some indications that there would be some input from municipalities having police forces as ours does. Doesn't seem to be in there. I don't know if it was in there previously and was removed or just never made it in. But I I think that I can probably find several hours between now and Sunday evening to dig through this. So if the council
Okay.
wanted to authorize me,
Well,
Um,
I'd be happy to join you in that. We can divvy up stuff. I was also thinking, if this might be something, I think it divvied up, also along with members of the Public Safety Committee. If we would also get input from staff, especially, from the police department as well. On this, I mean, these are thoughts pretty much off the top of my head here, so I am open to suggestions.
Well, what I would suggest, just to give a concrete suggestion, is to have the council appoint myself and you as the members of the subcommittee, and that we, in consultation with the rest of the council, would review and informally provide the topics of our review, and we would reach out to certainly to the Public Safety Committee members as part of that process, and that we would request that staff perform a review for possible impacts of the legislation as written on operations over the next few days, and provide that to us as part of our review. Does that sound like a reasonable path forward, Mr. Vice Mayor?
And was that question to me or to someone else?
That was to you. Does that sound like a path
I think it's
forward?
good. I think it's a matter of just having that time frame set up, so we know when all this is coordinated and put together. So then, we're able then to afford, provide comment by that Monday deadline.
Okay, well, Mr. Town Manager, will staff be able to review this by the end of the week?
So a couple comments, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
It's my understanding that the county legislation is to enact the state legislation, and the changes that they're creating are to ensure that the county is in compliance with the already passed state law. And you may be able to, if you review the letters of transmittal that come with the links that Councilmember Lingua sent out earlier, the one-page letters of transmittal kind of focus in on why the county is doing what they're doing. And there may be a little wiggle room, if you will, for the county to have anything different than what they have in their legislation, if it's simply to comply with the state law that's already been passed. I had, prior to receiving this email, had given Acting Chief Quixon's off this evening, but I did bother her on her day off after seeing the email, and she has been attending meetings with county officials from a variety of departments as it relates to this. And so I think staff within the next day or so can have some sort of a summary to the council on what this legislation does and what it doesn't do, and what areas may be
of concern.
Well, either of staff concern or of where you may be able to actually see a change, as opposed to simply compliance with state law. So changes that are being made simply for compliance with state law, there's not going to be any wiggle room there. But that's something that I can work with Acting Chief Quixons on and report back to you and say, okay, in this bill, here are things where you may have some wiggle room, and the county can do things differently, as opposed to a housekeeping item, if you will.
Okay.
if that helps the council.
That would definitely help. And
Yeah.
and if we do establish a subcommittee authorized to carry to establish a response, then providing that information to that subcommittee would be allow that committee to make a good decision about whether and how to comment.
And so if I can work with the acting chief tomorrow, and we could probably have some sort of a summary to you on Wednesday.
Okay,
That's very workable.
It's very workable. I honestly doubt I'm going to have a lot of time to spend on this before the weekend. So so Wednesday is perfect. Okay, so it sounds like we may have a plan going forward for when we get back to our special legislative.
Okay.
Any additional items of new business? Any items of unfinished business? Okay, then this will end the work session, and I will recall us from recess at this time. We're back from recess at 9:04 p.m. and back in session, entering the special legislative meeting at new business. Are there any items of new business?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to establish a subcommittee for the purpose of reviewing for comment county bills 021 through 024 for the year 2022 in order to consider providing comment at the county council meeting of the whole, committee of the whole, on May 31st, 2022 at 11 a.m.
And just as a friendly amendment, that subcommittee would provide commentary, or a subset of that subcommittee would provide commentary on behalf of the entire council.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Seconded.
Okay, a motion has been made by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Foe, to establish a subcommittee of the council, and I'm just going to paraphrase here, to review the police accountability laws that will be appearing before the county council at a hearing on May 31st, and provide commentary on behalf of the Riverdale Park Town Council at that meeting. Do you want to specify as part of this motion the membership of the committee?
Yeah, I guess
it's got to happen sometime.
Yes, I would. I guess it does need to happen. The subcommittee would be comprised of yourself, Mr. Mayor, myself. On consideration, I was thinking also chair of the Public Safety Committee.
So Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Chair of the Public Safety Committee.
Does that sound reasonable to you?
Sure. Okay, so that should be incorporated into the motion as a friendly amendment, I would take it. And Councilmember Foe, is that amendment acceptable to you?
It is.
Okay. Any discussion of this motion?
Only comment I have is my appreciation for staff being able to have the flexibility to help provide input on this on such an short notice. And I'll just leave it at that. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay. Any additional council comment? Any public comment? So I will add that I'm going to be reaching out over, Councilmember Foe?
Just a question about communication with the council over the findings of the group. Do we have any expectation as to when that may occur? It sounds by your schedule, Mr. Mayor, that it might be over the weekend.
Yeah, I'm hoping that that we can have at least areas of interest out on Saturday night.
Yeah.
Councilmember Lingua.
Yeah.
And Councilmember Mayers as chair of the public safety.
I just, I may
that
be out
right?
of communication.
I'm so out of the committee structure, I don't have it memorized.
I don't either.
Director Barnes. You're muted, Ms. Barnes.
Sorry, I have Councilmember Mayers as chair.
Okay.
That was my memory, so thank you, appreciate that.
Still
I
working.
almost had the memo open, but not quite. So yes, I think that that we should be able to have something out Saturday night and hopefully get that polished up over the next day or two beyond that.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I can work. I'd be happy to work toward that deadline.
Okay. Any additional council comments or public comments on this item of new business? Okay, I will move to a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith is not here. Councilmember Foe?
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua?
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq?
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia is not present. Councilmember Mayers?
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. Are there additional items of new business? Are there additional items of unfinished business? May I have a motion to adjourn this special legislative meeting?
So moved.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Foe, I believe. And there's no debate or discussion. I'll move immediately to a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith is absent. Councilmember Foe?
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua?
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq?
Aye.
Councilmember Mejia is absent. Councilmember Mayers?
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. We are adjourned at 9:11 p.m. Thank you all very much for these meetings. It was productive and efficient meetings this evening. Thank you all.
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Yeah.
Have a nice evening.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor
Good
and
night.
council.
Thank you to staff.